teaching you the art of industrial real estate. This is On Air with Team Jensen.
All right. Welcome, listeners. Welcome to On Air, the art of industrial real estate with Team Jensen. Today, you got your hosts, Stuart and Kurt Jensen, and we're really excited to have George Grieb, the president of Lynn Electric, on with us. Thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for
Doing
being
well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me down.
Yeah. Even though you're a Lawrence native, we'll let you on as a couple Tigers over here. So excited to dive in and hear more about Lynn Electric and also just kind of all the other things you guys are doing here in town and around the area. But first and foremost, just if you could give us a little background on your personal career, but also how you ended up with Lynn Electric and how long you've been there and just kind of the trajectory you've been on since.
Sure. So I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. I moved down to Lawrence, Kansas in 1985 to go to the University of Kansas and fell in love. I know, right?
Okay. All right.
I know it's tough for a couple Tigers, but fell in love with Lawrence and just ended up staying there. So when I was in college, I went to work for a developer in Lawrence there, and through the work that he did, I met an electrical contractor there and started working for him in the summer times.
Okay.
And really kind of fell in love with the work and being around contracting and building and whatnot. And so when I finished school, I went to work for the electrical contractor, Haynes Electric, old Keith Haynes, and just ended up sticking with that because I liked it so much. And
Where did you start your electrical career? I mean, were you in the field? Were you doing?
yeah, I was just a field electrician.
Okay.
My first full year as electrician, I still have my pay stubs.
Yeah.
My handwritten pay stubs. Haynes Electric was maybe 5-6 employees. So Keith did all his payroll by hand, and I made $7.25 an hour. I think my first full year I made $12,000 gross.
All right.
Being an apprentice electrician.
Okay.
So, and then 4 or 5 years later, I met Chuck Lynn, who was the owner of Lynn Electric, and went to work for Chuck and enjoyed working for Chuck. And he kind of made me his project manager, kind of as the field director. And when we got too big and kind of grew the company bigger than what he wanted to get, he wanted to get out. So we put together an agreement, and I bought Lynn Electric from him in 1999.
Very
So
cool.
Been at it ever since.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good 25-year run. Are you guys?
Yes.
Are you doing anything to celebrate the 25 years this year?
No, we're just we're celebrating by being open still.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Still taking new business.
Still
right?
taking new business. Yes.
Yeah.
And I know you guys do a lot of new construction, but I think when we first met and connected, you mentioned that the service side of your business is something you guys are growing in. And can you touch a little bit on that for listeners and kind of what you're doing there and where maybe you could help out with some folks?
Sure. So, even though we've been in Lawrence, well, actually the company's been in Lawrence since 1977, and I've owned it since '99. But really, since the mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, the majority of our revenue comes from projects that we do in the Kansas City metro area.
Okay.
So we don't do a ton of work in Lawrence because there's just, for a company that has 50 or 60 employees, there's not a lot of jobs that are that big in Lawrence on a consistent basis.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously, right now there's a big stadium renovation going on and things like that. But in the beginning, early parts of 2025, we're going to move to an office in Kansas City or have an additional office in Kansas City. But we really want to expand our service division and our small projects division, industrial and commercial, in the Kansas City area.
Okay.
So we think that's a great part of the business to be in.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're concentrating on here in the next year or so.
Good.
You guys are heavily involved in the football stadium project, or no?
We're not.
No.
That went to three really big electrical contractors.
Gotcha.
We just
Okay.
didn't have the manpower to meet the
Right. Right.
to meet the schedule. It's a pretty aggressive schedule. So
I believe it. Yeah.
But yeah, but we've done a lot of work up at KU over the years. We just didn't participate in this one.
Got it.
A little too big for us.
Yeah. Are there some of the campus buildings that you've gotten to work on that you guys are, love driving by and seeing what you've done out there?
Yeah, probably one of my favorite projects of all time is McCarthy Hall,
Okay.
which was the basketball dormitory that they built probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
There on campus, right next to, very close to Allen Fieldhouse.
Is it the one that's close to the baseball stadium too?
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah,
just-
right.
yep, it's just
I know
on
the
the other
baseball
side.
stadium's between. Yeah, but yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I think I know which hall you're talking about.
Yeah. So it was I think there's 20 or 25 rooms in there, and so the basketball team stays there, and then there's also some students from the general population that stay there. So
Right.
that was a fun project, and we got to know Coach Self a little bit, and
Yeah,
some of
that's
the
cool.
other coaches. So it was kind of a neat project.
Yeah.
Well, and I could be wrong, but did you tell me too that you guys did some work on the baseball stadium and some of those projects?
Well,
or-
for many years until they tore the stadium down, we used to do all a lot of the electrical maintenance on the football stadium, including the stadium lights.
Okay.
Yeah. So we maintain those for the athletic department.
Yeah.
Every July and August, we kind of relamped and changed ballasts out and got them ready for football season. So
Yeah.
obviously this year we're not doing it because there's no stadium right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that. We've done that for probably 20 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's been when Stuart and I were back there playing in the state tournament back in the day. We had a lot of fun playing out there, even though it was Lawrence. We did have a lot
Yeah.
of fun playing
Yeah.
out those fields, and
No doubt.
it was some good memories over there. Some bad ones too, losing, but good
Yeah.
memories for the most part.
Yeah.
But so well, and thanks for telling your history. You've been at it for quite a long time. And I know. I think your wife's pretty involved too. She's on your team at Lynn Electric. I think that's pretty cool.
She is. She's our vice president of administration or vice president of finance.
Okay.
So she's in charge of the checkbook
Yeah.
There you go.
to make sure I don't spend too much money, and she does a great job for us. So, and she's been in the business for 13 or 14 years now.
Okay. Been part of the team.
Been
that
part
whole
of the
time.
team. Yep.
And was she what was she doing before that?
She was a stay-at-home mom
Okay.
before that, and she's to add fuel to the fire. She's a K-State grad.
Well, that's better.
She's a Wildcat. Well, maybe it's better for you. Maybe it's better for the Tigers to be a Wildcat than a Jayhawk.
We
but
have
yeah.
a little bit more. We have more of a soft spot for Wildcats than Jayhawks.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah, it's just in the blood. You know
Yeah.
how it goes.
Growing up on the Kansas side, it was always, I swear, every year I was the only kid in my elementary class that was a Mizzou fan. So
Yeah.
it was, I had to kind of fend for myself. But no. And how many kids do you have now?
So we have, Mindy and I, between the two of us, we have 4 kids.
Okay.
31 is the oldest, and the youngest is 19.
Okay.
Has anybody been in your world career-wise?
Yeah, so my son, George Jr., he works for, 5 years ago, we started a horizontal directional drilling company called Freedom Excavating and Trenching.
Okay.
And George Jr.'s 23, and he's an operator for that company.
Gotcha.
So he's a dirt dog, and he loves it. So
Yeah.
maybe one day he'll be in the management part, but right now he's enjoying
Yeah.
being on the machines.
Nice.
Could you tell when he was a kid that he might be getting into something like that?
Well, I did a little bit, not necessarily excavating, but he's always been into cars and trucks, and he's just a car guy.
Yeah.
Which I don't know where he got it because I'm not a
Yeah.
car guy. I mean, I take my truck to get the oil changed at Jiffy Lube, and that's about all I know about cars and engines. But
Right.
he's definitely a car guy, so I knew he was going to be probably kind of a hands-on guy.
Okay.
So.
There you go. Well, and Freedom Excavating, did that come about? Was there a project that kind of kicked that off, or kind of what was the catalyst there?
Well, so for many years, Lynn Electric's had its own excavating division, or guys that just all they did was electrical utility work. And as projects got more and more complicated, we always need directional drillers to come in and help us out, maybe to bore a conduit underneath a road, or
Right.
and I could never get directional drillers to come out and give me a price. And then when they gave me a price, it'd take 6 or 7 weeks for them to get there.
Yeah.
And so finally, I kind of looked into the industry, and I was like, well, man, this is something I need to get into if there's that big of a demand for it. And we can't afford to wait that long to get some stuff done.
Right, bring it in-house almost.
Yeah, so we did a couple years of research, and in October of 2019, we started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that like a sister company almost?
Yeah, it's a sister company. It's just
Okay.
a wholly owned subsidiary of
Right.
Lynn Electric, and
Right.
it's doing really well. And
Cool.
it's it's been a good business, and it really helps out our electrical guys when we have that ability to do that kind of work in house instead of
Yeah.
having to go outside. So
Yeah. How many guys do you have in the field amongst both companies?
we have about 60, about 50 in the electrical company, and 10 in the
Okay.
excavating company.
Okay. I would imagine you guys are pulling those folks from all surrounding areas, Lawrence,
Kansas City,
DeSoto, et cetera, et cetera.
Kansas City, both Missouri and Kansas side, DeSoto, Gardner,
Yeah.
from all over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I got to ask, you got the win the day sheet with you. Now, is that something you guys have at the office, or?
Yeah, so, a couple years ago, we started to implement the EOS system.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
I've heard it from a couple clients.
What's
Yeah,
it stand for?
EOS is Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Okay.
It's based on a book by Gino Wickman called Traction. And it basically is a business system to kind of organize your company into different parts. And part of that implementation was, creating our mission statement and our vision and values. And so our mantra is kind of win the day.
Yeah.
What are the 3 to 5 things that everyone can do when they wake up in the morning to make their day better, to make their colleagues' day better, make their wife's day better? It's just kind of a positive reinforcement, a commitment to excellence to start your day.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of our mantra, and it's been really good and unifying for us over the last couple of years. So, yeah.
Cool. What would you say are a couple of your favorite, not to put you on the spot, but what are a couple of your favorite bullet points or whatnot?
Well, I like the commitment to excellence. The productivity, set and achieve daily goals. And that's not just professionally; it's
Yeah.
also personally.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of times, especially in the construction business, it goes fast. And you guys know in the real estate business too, everything's super fast.
Yeah.
Warp speed. So if we can get guys to slow down a little bit at the beginning of the day and think about what they're doing and try and set some goals, even no matter how small they are,
Right.
Yeah.
it just kind of makes the day go better.
Take a little
yeah.
little pride in the work at hand.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Yeah.
intention goes a long way. It really
It does.
And that's something that we talk about a lot too, is just, if you consistently do the small things, the big things are going to follow and take care of themselves to a certain degree.
Right.
So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
You guys got that posted up on your wall or something in the office?
Yeah, we have it all over the office, and every new employee gets one. I try and meet with all the new employees, before they go out in the field, and we kind of talk about our core values and
Yeah.
Right.
what they mean to us and why we do it.
What your expectations are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been good.
Good.
It's been real good.
And now, did you guys? Oh yeah, do you want to do it? Do you have a question for Crack It
Oh,
Open?
I was just thought it was a good time.
Stuart's always ready to crack a beer. Well, we can jump to it. We can jump to the segment. You said you wanted Yes Way, right?
Sure.
Well, and so we've got. I think our listeners might be getting more familiar with it, but Martin City Brewing is a sponsor of ours, and they've been nice enough to continue to give us good beers, good cold beers to drink.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drink the Bohemian today, which is their Pilsner. Looks like George is going with the Yes Way Jose, which is a nice Mexican lager. And Stuart's going to go with the
hazy.
classic hazy IPA. So we're going to crack it open. And Stuart, do you have a question, or do you want me to ask a question?
I do.
All right, let's
I
hear it.
do.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, it's a crispy one.
That's really good.
Yeah, at this day and age, when it comes to attracting and retaining quality employees and labor and all of that, company culture is certainly important and on the front of mind. I know a lot of, people in our generation, looking for work and stuff like that. It would be very apparent that it sounds like you guys have done well with that and have laid that culture out there. I'm curious how you guys balance, having such a core part of your business out in the field and segmented, if you will, on any given job, and your in office folks, and how you guys just do you get together and do some camaraderie events? Do you bring in? I mean, how do you kind of bring everybody under the wing to make sure that culture is maintained like you have for the last 30 years here?
Right. So, with you guys know with the younger workforce nowadays that, the reason that people leave a job or leave a company is not because of pay or money. It's normally because of their direct manager they don't get along with, or the values of the company aren't congruent with the team member.
Yep.
And I think I learned here in the last few years that 87% of success of a team or a company or a sports team or really any organization, nonprofit it could be, 87% comes from character and 13% comes from competency.
Mm-hmm.
And so really over the last 2 years it's kind of flipped for me, because I was always the kind of boss that was like, productivity tracking, where are we at, estimate versus actual, KPIs, kind of business deal. But
Right.
I've learned through a lot of reading and a lot of studying that the most important thing is that employees, especially younger ones, feel needed
Mm-hmm.
and wanted, and that they have a value, and that the company provides enough growth opportunity for them to expand their careers. They're not just going to come and be a field electrician for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So we've really, as the team has gotten bigger, the leadership team, and I've been able to pull back from the day-to-day stuff.
Right.
I spend a lot more time in the field visiting with, team members all the way on the front line, and just kind of trying to reinforce our culture.
Yeah.
About 6 weeks back, we had we brought in a leadership speaker named Mac Story. He operates a company called Blue Collar Leadership, and we did a 4-hour. He did a 4-hour talk for us, and we purchased 500 of his books. He's written 11 or 12 books, and so we bought all 11 books for all 60 employees, and then we brought Mac in. And so before that, about a month before Mac came to talk in May, we started doing book studies.
Yeah.
And actually, almost everyone in the company now is involved in a book study on a weekly basis.
That's really cool. That's unique.
So,
That's
they had a little homework, huh?
Yeah, well, you know what? They don't have to do homework. We read 3 chapters a week.
Yeah. Right.
And go over them. Everybody underlines and highlights what meant something to them.
Yeah.
And then, the chapters are 3 pages long. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes. We listen to it.
Well, that might take Stuart a while to read. But
I do occasionally have to reread some paragraphs.
Yeah.
What did I just
sorry to
read?
interrupt. I
No, that's
couldn't
fine.
help myself.
And then, then we discuss it for a little bit. And so,
Yeah. No, that's cool.
yeah, so we've been doing that probably since March, and that's really been helpful.
It's been well received.
It has been well received. There's some people that aren't totally into it, but
Certainly.
some of the older guys that are my age are skeptical, saying, why do I need to do this? I'm at the end of my career.
Right. You're always going to have those battles.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's natural.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
What would you say is one of the takeaways that you've enjoyed or feel like you've learned from some of those book studies and the conversations? Not to put you on the spot, but we can come back to it.
So it's I think there's 2 things I think that were aha moments for me in educating myself and starting to read on leadership and cultural transformation and whatnot. And one is that, and this comes from Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yep.
But humans have the ability between stimulus and response to pause and think about how they react. And that was really good for me because being in the construction business and the personality that I have, I would fly off the handle pretty easy.
Yeah,
React.
we get that.
And
Yeah.
and so the idea that I didn't have to react that way, that I could pause and think about it and maybe even not react until the next day was, I just thought it was something that was
Yeah.
just scripted in my life, and so that's the way I was going to be.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I
So
get-
that's
I
a
get
big
that.
one. And then I think the second thing is no matter what fire you're trying to fight, instead of looking out the window, look in the mirror. Because even if it wasn't my fault or it was just a circumstance, you got to think, how can I change
right,
how this problem can be handled, versus trying to place blame all the time.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those two things for me personally were just huge aha moments that I had, at 55,
Yeah, no,
2 years ago. And so it's
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say, you should be more mature than that at 57, but honestly, I just learned that in the last year.
well, I think, and I mean, those both resonate with me as well, and I feel like they both kind of touch on perspective a little bit, and it's, especially in today's day and age, I think it's important to keep perspective on things, and I mean, not to throw our dad Dan under the bus, but I think he would agree that those are some things that later in his career he's grown on those fronts as well. And so, because it's easy, especially in the construction world, the development world, just on a transaction, it's easy to get frustrated and in the moment feel like the other side's just trying to be difficult or they screwed something up and what the hell, right?
Yeah.
But when you take a step back and focus on the solution, it leads to a better outcome for everyone, and it's more enjoyable instead of getting heated on things. But
Yes.
so those resonate with me as well. But I've not to get distracted, I've got a question that for the Crack It Open segment. Thank you, Martin City. That's a little bit more pointed towards sports, which I do have to. I'm a Mizzou guy, so I hate bringing this up, but I'm curious.
It's okay. I knew this was coming.
Well, it's not even that. It's actually a friendly question. And I could be wrong on the dates because I'm not a big KU guy. But if you went to KU in '85,
Yes.
does that mean that you were in college during like the Danny and the Miracles run or whatever?
So listen, when I was in high school, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. So I just figured that I was going to go to Nebraska.
Right.
That's just 80% of my classmates
Yeah.
were going to Nebraska, so I figured that's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Well, apparently my parents had enough of me because when I was a senior in high school, my dad brought me down in the kitchen. He had a map of the United States, and he got a compass out, and he drew a 200-mile radius around Omaha, and he said, I will pay for your college, but you can't go inside this circle. You have to go outside this circle.
Does
And
your mom
so-
know about that?
She was right there. She was standing right there. And so I had my closest sister in age to me, Katie, was already at KU. She was in the
Okay.
nursing program, so I've been down there. So
Yeah.
I picked KU. I picked KU to go. So I got, my first day of school was August 25th, 1985. So that fall, my pledge dad at the Fireside House took me I got to see the Royals and the Chiefs play
Oh
on
yeah.
the same day.
I mean, think about
Oh
that.
yeah, in '85.
In
Yeah.
'85, it was the World Series and then a regular season Chiefs game.
That was a good.
It wasn't the final of the World Series, but it was one of the World
Yeah,
Series
Bo-
games.
yeah.
Both of them were being played out.
Yeah, so one was in the afternoon and one was in the
God,
evening.
that
I
would
think
be
it was the
freaking
Royals.
awesome.
Or I mean, I think the Chiefs were at 1 o'clock. It's when
Right.
everything was at
And
1,
that's some night game. For
and then it was a night game for the Royals.
That'd be wild.
I would pay big money to.
So
do
then that spring in '86, KU went to the Final Four
that. Yeah.
in Dallas, and back then it was a student lottery that you could, you called in or mailed into the NCAA to see if you could get a student ticket.
Okay.
And I won 4 student tickets, and I turned around and sold them for $100 each.
Okay.
So I made $400,
Yeah.
and that was like $1 million back then when I was a college student. So I went the fall of '85, Royals, Royals and Chiefs, and then KU going to the Final Four, and that was I was like, I'm never
Yeah.
moving back to
Yeah.
Nebraska ever again.
That was a hell of a run.
Right, and then of course Danny and the Miracles in '88, and then I was, you know,
You remember where
Yeah,
you remember where you
dang.
were when you were watching that, the '88 championship?
I do. I was at 1941 Kentucky, which is the house that I lived in, and I watched it there with my roommate, Mark Kramer and Gary. Let's see, and Kelly Driscoll, and I remember after the game, and KU won. We're jumping in our cars to go up to campus to celebrate. And we stopped at the liquor store at 19th and Mass, and we walked into the beer cave. They had a beer cave before beer caves were cool, and there wasn't one single beer left in the whole entire store.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we went up to campus and
The Mass
awesome.
Street and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, it wasn't Mass Street then in '88. It was up on Jayhawk Boulevard.
Okay. That's,
And
that's an ugly name for a
Yeah.
boulevard, but
Just
I can't stop.
Can't help
Yeah,
myself.
no, I know. But you asked, so I had to tell.
I know. I wanted to, it's a fun story. I will say, I joke with my KU friends. Ever since Mizzou went to the SEC, I kind of miss hating KU, but I find myself growing softer and softer for the Jayhawks.
There you go.
I mean, I hear you. There was a time after I graduated from Mizzou, moved back to Kansas City, just as far as like a successful run, where I was like, God, all I ask for is either a Chiefs Super Bowl, a Royals World Series, Mizzou basketball Final Four, or a Mizzou football championship of some sort.
Yeah.
I just want one of those four. And
In my lifetime.
right.
That's, me and
And
my
I
buddies
thought,
used to
and I
joke.
thought
Yeah.
we'd never get a single one, and then we get 24-15 with the Royals, and then the Chiefs have just been on their run. We're spoiled in Kansas City now.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Mizzou.
Yeah, Mizzou's had some up and down moments.
Football is exciting, but we'll see. We'll see. So,
Yeah, yeah.
But no, that I can see why you ended up sticking around, coming to town, and having all that exciting stuff happen.
No doubt.
So,
Yeah.
You still have family up in Nebraska?
I do. My mom still living and lives in Omaha, and I have a sister and a brother
Okay.
that both live in Omaha. still.
Did you do any of was the College World Series up there yet when you were up there?
yeah, it's
So-
Rosenblatt.
Yeah, so
Well,
it was at
yeah.
Rosenblatt. Yeah,
Right.
So as a young kid, before ESPN got a hold of the College World Series,
Right.
it went Friday to Friday. And the first day of the College World Series, there was 4 baseball games. And my dad worked downtown at a bank, so he would drop my buddies and I off at Rosenblatt in the morning.
That's
He'd get
awesome.
done with work and then go back home and change. Then he'd come back for the nightcap for the 4th game and pick us up and take us home. So we would, I think from 75 to probably 80, I went to every single,
Every
I
year,
would just,
yeah. That's
every
awesome.
single game, yeah.
Well, I knew it was Rosenblatt. I wasn't sure how
long it's been
how long
around.
Rosenblatt was around. I think because have you been back to the new stadium? I haven't
Yeah.
been to the new
It's
stadium.
been there for
I know.
every bit of probably almost 15 years now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
I know.
Because when I was
Yeah.
maybe even like 7th, 8th grade or high school,
Yeah.
it was brand new and it was
Yeah.
impressive.
I
It's-
haven't been since I was a
It's
kid.
cool from an amenity standpoint. I think it makes a lot of sense, but
Yeah, no, it's-
Rosenblatt had a flavor unlike anything else.
We have
Yeah.
we have fond memories of Omaha. Our dad coached us playing baseball all summer, every
Sure.
summer, and we went to a lot of regional tournaments. And
Sure.
so Omaha was a frequent weekend on the summer calendar. And when
Yes.
it lined up with the
Yes.
CWS, it was
Right.
like, hell yeah, we're gonna go to some baseball games.
Well, they're
Yeah.
playing right. The College World Series is happening right
Yeah,
now.
it's this week.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you ever get up there with your kids or anything like that to go see it?
We haven't been to the College World Series with the kids. Once it switched to the new stadium and ESPN got involved, tickets
Yeah, it got pricey.
got pricey and super hard to get.
Right.
So I haven't taken the kids, but
Yeah.
when the kids were younger, we used to go to Omaha all the time to go to the zoo.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So
we went to the zoo a couple of those tournaments as well.
Yeah.
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 Parents are always looking for something to keep us busy. You know what I mean? But well, and kind of jumping back to more of the business side of things, but are there any projects that you guys are working on in town right now that you want to touch on or anything like that? Or
yeah, we're doing for Brinkman Construction. We just finished Tallgrass 2.4
oh, cool. Okay.
down in Overland Park, and I'm just starting or partway into Tallgrass 2.4. So those are two nice projects. We're doing a nice project, the Oslo, for Ryan Companies here in town.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are two nice projects.
I don't know if Ryan Companies is ever going to stop building office buildings over there. They're growing like gangbusters.
Yeah, this is a multi-use project.
Okay.
Or apartment project. And so
Is it it's directly adjacent to their buildings there, right?
it's right adjacent to the Jack Stack.
Okay.
To the Jack Stack
Right. I think it's like
venue there.
97th and Metcalf or something like that.
Jack Stack's at 90, the corner of 95th and
95th and Metcalf.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, those are a couple of good ones. And then for O'Reilly Build up in Liberty, we're doing a senior living facility up there.
Okay.
And then for Turner, we're doing a Lenexa Old Town Activity Center remodel. So
Okay.
that's in the center right there in downtown Lenexa. So
Yeah.
that's a nice project.
And yeah, Lenexa's grown like crazy in the last
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kansas City's been growing crazy for 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, but that metro is just stretching more and more west, and then you got the Panasonic stuff going on in DeSoto. And, I mean, we're gonna look up, and the metro is gonna be approaching Lawrence. I mean,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know when I first came to Lawrence in 1985, you know, the new K10, the K10 as we know it now, was just recently finished.
Okay.
You know, it was kind of a 2-lane country road from Lawrence. K10 was the old K10, which
Right.
kind of meandered by the Panasonic,
Yeah.
where the Panasonic plant is now.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, reading in the paper and stuff where the Lawrence City Fathers would be talking about someday that Kansas City Metro and Lawrence would be connected. And I kind of really thought at the time that they must have been on some type of a drug or something, because there was no way. But boy, 30 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
Now
It's
just getting closer and
trending that direction.
Yeah, it really
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
all the more. I mean, you described it. So much of your business is synonymous with Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, you're Lawrence based, but that. I mean, how many times a week are you driving through Midtown and like almost just
Yeah.
part of Kansas City Metro?
Yeah, no, all of our guys are. I mean, 85% of everybody that works for us is in Kansas City.
Okay.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So-
it takes me. I mean, I'm in south part of town, but it takes me longer to get to Liberty than it does Lawrence. It takes
Yeah.
me just as long to get to Lee Summit as it does Lawrence. I mean, it's
Yeah. No, that's true.
it's right there. It's just
Yeah.
it's just the Jayhawks. I don't know.
At the end of the day, it's back in the back of your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
That's all I can. That's how we were raised. Our dad used to joke that he'd pay for us to go to anywhere for school except for Lawrence, Kansas.
And that we had two teams that we cheered for: the Tigers and whoever was playing KU.
Which I think that goes both ways. At least that's what I've been told by a lot of my KU friends. But
It has lost a little bit of its luster, a little bit of its hate with the.
when you don't play them every year, it's
I
kind of
know.
like
Well, and when you're
and
not fighting for the same conference, and it's just different.
Yeah, it
it's
is.
just.
And I've got a lot of KU friends that I tongue in cheek, I'll say it, but I want to see them happy about their sports team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's some of the KU, just like I'm sure there's some Mizzou fans that it's not fun to watch win. There's some KU
Right.
friends that aren't. It's not fun to watch them win. So
It's funny, one of my good college roommates, who's still a good friend of mine, he lives here in Kansas City, Scott Michelson, graduated from KU, and he has 3 kids, a twin boy and girl, and then a younger gal. And 2 of his 3 kids, even though he's a KU grad, went to Mizzou.
Yeah.
And so I think in the beginning he was,
It
a little
paid-
bit nervous about it, but he loves Mizzou.
Yeah.
He loves going down there. You know,
Lawrence was really fun every time I went.
Oh,
it's a
it's
great,
cool.
it's a great city. It's a
Yeah.
great college town.
it really
Yeah.
is.
But
Well, and that's what I've kind of had to embrace. I'm in the dating pool. There's a lot of KU girls out there, and it's like there's worse things than being a Jayhawk.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And we've got an uncle who was a big KU guy, and he had a son. He ended up in St. Louis, and he had a son that is now at Mizzou, and he's a funny guy. He's an Energizer bunny, but he's always gung ho now and all excited, always to talk about how awesome Columbia is and how he he never realized how cool it was. And our mom, his sister, went there, and so we always just kind of laugh.
Genuine college towns like Lawrence and Manhattan. Manhattan.
Manhattan's cool.
They're all very awesome.
Yeah.
They all offer a lot of the same stuff, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, kind of just touching back on Lynn Electric. I mean, appreciate you coming on, but excited to see you guys grow in Kansas City. And are there any initiatives or anything you're wanting to talk about or mention that you guys are focused on here, project-wise, or any niches you're kind of trying to focus on? Or
Well, like I'd mentioned before, we want to grow our service department here in Kansas City, and to accommodate that, in the first half of 2025, we're going to move our offices or create an additional office in Kansas City.
Okay.
The Kansas City Metro, maybe Lenexa, Latham, as you guys know, you're helping me look for a space, so.
Right.
But yeah, so we're gonna. We recognize most of our revenue comes from Kansas City.
right?
We want to be here. This is our growth plan. Is Kansas City? It's not Lawrence, and so we just need to be here.
Yeah.
And participate in the communities that we work.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're going to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to seeing you grow here in town. And as always, anytime you want to crack open a Martin City beer, you know where to find us.
Man, I'll tell you what. I've had their gluten-free beer. I can't remember what it's called. The Yoga Pants.
Oh, yeah.
Yoga pants.
Which my sister-in-law drinks, which is how I've tasted it before. You can't tell it's gluten-free.
Okay.
But I'm not a big beer drinker.
Right.
But this Yes Way Jose with lime is really good.
Not
Pretty
too
good beer.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, especially on a hot day like today.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Well, go grab a cold one, listeners. You heard it from George himself. So, but thanks for coming on. And this was another fun episode of On Air with Team Jensen. If you could give us a follow and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening in on, we'd love to have you join along for the ride. So, thanks again to Lynn Electric and George for coming on.
Thanks, George.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.